Um, Good morning, students. Welcome to our topic. We are going on from where we stopped. We are asking the question why the international peace collapsed by 1939 or in the 1930s. And we find by 1939 the Second World War happened. And in our subtopic today, we are going to look at, was the policy of appeasement justified? Remember, in our last topic, we are looking at the Hitler's ambitions, and we say that Hitler was ready to redeem the lost glory of Germany. And I remember I gave you a short story how Hitler became in power. I told you that Hitler was not born Germany. He was an Austrian who trained as an army, and during the First World War, he fought on the side of the Germany. And after that, Germany lost the battle, and due to so many problems that we discussed during the Treaty of Versailles, they were looking for a redeemer or a savior of that country. And that's how Hitler reached into power. And I said he started writing books, how he's going to redeem the lost glory of Germany. He became very popular among the people, and by 1930s, he became the heir or the father of Germany. And from there, we say that his aim, he had three major aims. One was to rearm Germany, that was against the Treaty of Versailles. Two was to stop paying of reparations that they were trying to pay during the Treaty of Versailles. And number three, he wanted to make Germany even more stronger than it was during the First World War. Now, with Hitler's ambition, and here we have the Treaty of Versailles, and also we have the world is trying to make peace with everyone. What will happen next? We say the major powers in the Treaty of Versailles in the League of Nations were France, Britain, and other countries. And we say that Germany had joined in 1926. But to find in the 1930s, Hitler withdrew from there, from the League of Nations. Now from here, what will happen? That's what is taking us to our next subtopic, where we are asking, was the policy of appeasement justified? That's the question we're asking. We need to start by knowing what is appeasement. When you talk about appeasement, what does it mean? Sometimes you may have a very bad child in your home who always cause problems. So if you want that child to settle down, what does your mother do, or what do you do as a person? Sometimes you try to please him or her in order to make him happy, such that he will not disturb the others. Now here we have a big term there we are calling appeasement. To appease is to try and pacify or satisfy someone, trying to appease someone, to make him whatever you want to, you accept because you don't want problem. So this treaty or this policy of appeasement originated from Britain and France. They are the one who tried to appease Hitler during this time, because Hitler was becoming very arrogant, and we find that the two countries, they were not ready for another war. Remember the First World War, how they suffered, the losses they incurred. Now, if another war has to happen only few years after the First World War I, it meant that Britain and France could have maybe collapsed. On the other hand, we find during the peace conference, the two countries do not agree 100% how to treat Germany. You find Britain, they did not want a harsh treatment for Germany, while on the other side, France wanted very severe punishment for Germany. Now, after that, what will happen? You find in Britain, we have some people who will sympathize with Germany. The same will happen to France. And when Hitler came into power, with that in mind, what his ambition was, you find that France and Britain, they were supposed to do something in order to prevent Hitler causing another World War I. Now here I have a question. If Britain and France were not prepared to defend the Treaty of Versailles, would they let Hitler have more of his demands? Okay, they are not ready. If they are not prepared to defend, now what will happen? It means that if they are not prepared to defend, it means that they will allow Germany to do whatever he feels like. So the short answer for this maybe is yes. And the Britain policy at that time, it became to be known as the appeasement, whereby you give in to the demands of your rival. When he say give, you give. When he say do this, you just do. So that's what Britain and France did. Now, this one did not just happen like that. We are told that the one who was there to become the prime minister was known as Neville Chamberlain, is the man most associated with this policy, although he did not become the prime minister until when? 1937. So many other British, including the politicians, the writers, they were also in favor of the policy. But this policy did not happen without critics. There were so many people who criticized the policy, whereby some they were wondering, if you give in to the demands of this Hitler, it means that you continue demanding, and at one point you may not be able to fulfill his demand. And one of that writer is a man known as David Thur, who was a cartoonist, so he was drawing cartoons showing all the people lying down and Hitler walking over them. That is one of the way he criticized that policy of appeasement. Now, in that policy of appeasement, I want you to go to your books. On page 67, 66 and 67, read it through. You look at the feeling of the different people. There are those who are for appeasement, there are those who are against the appeasement, and come up with a conclusion whether the British they were happy or they were for appeasement or not. As you do that, I want you to try to answer this question. We are going to watch our teacher taking us through the series, but I want you to make sure that you explain the following at the end of the lesson, what appeasement was according to that time, and give 2 examples of appeasement whereby the British and the France, they give in. We are going to see those examples. Then give the reason why Chamberlain followed the policy of appeasement, and finally, I want you to answer the question, give the reason why people criticize that policy of appeasement. So from here, we are going to our next clip, whereby we are going to watch a clip trying to explain to us this policy of appeasement and how it was done in order to make sure that Hitler did not cause the World War I.
Taking care of a crying baby, you know, sometimes there are just things that you will do to make the baby happy. You can hold the baby, rock the baby, make the baby feel better, perhaps offer it some food. These are forms of pacifying the baby in order to bring about good behavior. Now, spanking may come to mind, however, spanking usually as a punishment isn't going to make the baby better. It'll probably just make the situation worse. Pacifying a baby, or appeasement, is essentially a way to take bad behavior and give good behavior in order to bring about more good behavior. But what if your baby has a little mustache? Hi everyone, this is Mr. Trio, and today we are looking at why had international peace collapsed by 1939? Appeasement. Appeasement is our 4th focus point. Was the policy of appeasement justified? In our previous videos, we have taken a look at a number of foreign policy decisions that Hitler makes in the 1930s. In the 1930s, Britain, in particular, allows many of these actions to take place because they want to avoid any open conflict with the Nazi regime. These appeasements all come to a head by 1939. But before we jump ahead, it's important to take a few minutes to recognize that appeasement with Germany did make sense at the time. It's very easy to criticize appeasement in 2018 because we're looking back in history. But in 1930s, why did Great Britain tolerate appeasement with Nazi Germany? There are a number of reasons. First, many people in Britain believed that Germany had been put in a harsh condition during the Treaty of Versailles, and appeasement was a way to correct some of these problems. It's also important to recognize that Italy and Japan were also some troublemakers in the 1930s, and many people in Britain perceived that they were a bigger threat than Nazi Germany was. It's not unimportant to remember that appeasement was very popular. When Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain came back from Munich and told everyone that we had peace in our time, people thought that's a good thing. We're avoiding war. Who wants to go to another war? So it was very popular with the British people. Last but not least, the other great threat that many people in Britain saw was communism. Hitler had supported fascist governments in Spain against communists, and they recognized that Germany was on the border with the Soviet Union and essentially was keeping the Soviet Union at bay in the 1930s. So Germany could be potentially an ally, not an enemy, against communism. But all of that changes in March of 1939, when the Nazi regime invades Czechoslovakia. As a reminder, Czechoslovakia had been formed after World War I, mainly from provinces of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Let's consider two photographs. One, when the Nazis took Austria and marched into Vienna, its capital, in 1938, and when the Nazis arrived in Prague in 1939. Now obviously these two photographs are cherry-picked and one clearly shows the excitement and one doesn't. However, in 1938, Hitler could justify why he wanted Austria to be a part of the Nazi regime. In some ways, it followed the idea that old Woodrow Wilson had said many years before, that the idea of self-determination meant that people of the same race should rule themselves. And Austrians are Germanic people, but the same cannot be justified in Czechoslovakia. In Czechoslovakia, there were Czech people, there were Slovak people, Hungarians, and some Germans. So essentially, this was not consistent with the policies that the Nazis had had before. Many people believe that in 1939, with the invasion of Czechoslovakia, Hitler was finally shown his hand, what his foreign policy was meant to accomplish. And the big card he had not played yet was Poland. Poland will become the focus of March of 1939 because Hitler wants it. Poland also had been recreated at the end of World War I from territory from Germany, and Hitler in 1939 begins to talk about a number of items, wanting Poland back. In some ways, it is at this point that Britain and also France essentially draw a red line and say, enough is enough, no more appeasement. You cannot have Poland, in other words. And if Hitler crosses that line, there will be war. Britain and France, in 1939, made the commitment that if Poland is invaded, they will react. Essentially, this is the point that goes too far. We'll talk about this more in our next video. So thanks for joining me on this short episode of Appeasement. We'll talk more in class. See you later.
Okay, that's a small video just trying to explain to us how far Hitler went because of the policy of appeasement. You remember at first, he only demanded to occupy Sudetenland in 1938. And Germany said, if you occupy that area, if you occupy this area, that is the final, that's the last place that we want to occupy. Little did they know, the next victim will be Czechoslovakia. And we are told in 1939, Germany went ahead and attacked or invaded Czechoslovakia, demanding that Czechoslovakia is supposed to be part of Germany. And they continued like that until when during that time of attacking Czechoslovakia, they went ahead and signed an agreement whereby Chamberlain went all the way to Hitler and they made an agreement. And that agreement, we call it the Munich Agreement, whereby he agreed that once I occupy this territory, that will be the end of it all. But that did not stop there. We are told that immediately he started attacking Poland, and that created what we have seen here, a red line, whereby Britain and France could not continue appeasing with Germany at this level because it was becoming more and more aggressive, because Poland had France, they had interest in it, and also Britain could not allow Germany to occupy that area. Remember, he has occupied Danzig against the Treaty of Versailles, and he's claiming that all these territories belong to him. So when he attacked Poland, that's when the policy of appeasement ended, when Britain and France declared war on Germany, and that marked the beginning of the Second World War. In our next clip, we are going to see how now Germany is going to start making friendship with other countries. Like we are going to see the Soviet Pact, whereby he made agreement with Russia. Remember, Russia was his enemy during the First World War I. He's going to make pact with Japan. All these are the countries which are aggressive at this time, and Germany is asking, why aren't you attacking them? You are only looking upon me. And therefore, wait until the next lesson, try to answer those questions I've given there, and you'll be able to understand this policy of appeasement more better. Thank you so much.